Hey, what's going on everybody? Nick here, back with another lockdown fly tying video. Episode 17, I think. Hopefully there's some end in sight to this lockdown business, but for the time being, tying flies is the closest we can get to fishing. So for the last, I don't know, a couple weeks, I've been kind of messing around with a concept. Nothing really unique or original or anything, but just playing around with these 60-degree jig shanks from Spawn Fly Fish and trying to come up with different cool things. This sort of started by trying to tie something of an articulated jig style clouser, and it kind of branched off and ended up more into this realm. This is sort of a clouser-esque pattern, but definitely nothing traditional. This is by no means a finished product, since this is sort of supposed to be an informal series of videos. I just thought I would do this fly today, kind of work on it a little bit. I might tweak it from what I've been doing. I haven't had a chance to fish one of these things, obviously, but I've been pretty happy with how this thing has turned out. I have a hunch that once I get a chance to really fish this and get it in the water, it's going to move really well. I like the profile. I kind of like everything about it. My only real unknown is how it's going to move, but I have a feeling with the jig shank and the tungsten bead and everything, it's gonna jig, it's gonna wobble. I don't know. I just dig everything about it. So thought I would kind of just mess around with it here this morning. I didn't have anything else kind of planned, and I was really working on this a lot over the weekend, messing around with it and tweaking it. And so anyway, without any further ado, I'm just going to kind of jump into this and see how it goes. So to get started, I'm tying this on. The hook is going to be an Arex SA 280 hook, size 4. I've messed around with larger and smaller. This is sort of a sea run cutthroat sized fly. However, I think tying them larger, they most definitely could be an effective like summer coho pattern. I might even tie a few of these up in like albacore size to mess around with this summer if we get to fish. But so I've got some, actually I'm not using white. I'm going to use some red Vivus 10-aught thread, and I'll show you the reason for this at a certain point here, but basically all the thread is more or less going to be covered up, and I like to put red gills in at the end, so instead of using white thread like I have been doing and then switching to red at the end, I'm just going to tie the whole dang thing in red and call that good. So I am going to lay down a thread base here. To start with, I have 4 grizzly hackles here. These ones are from a grizzly flatwing cape that I bought online a year or two ago. Mostly I'm using these because this cape has a lot of these smaller feathers that I like for this size. If I was tying this as a larger version, you could get away with just using like your standard strung saddle hackles or whatever you got. So I'm just taking these, and it's a little hard to show this I guess, but I'm just sort of lining them up. I kind of want the dull side facing in, I guess, so that's not facing outward and visible. And I've got these pretty close to the same length. I don't care that they're not exactly the same length. They might even move a little better that way. And then I'm going to just measure them out for length. I don't want this to be super long. Trim off that. And I'm going to just more or less tie these down right on top of the hook shank. So these are going to be not laying flat, but more, I guess, vertical, like you would tie a deceiver pattern. So I'll just get those good and tied down. Don't really care about any fibers sticking out because this is all going to get covered up. Then I'm going to go with some flash. I think for this one I'm going to use some Pearl Polar Flash. This one that I'm tying today, it's going to be sort of a white, pink, and blue color combo, which is a combo I've really come to like, especially for coho. And you can do this however you want. I've sort of just tie this in right on top. I've got, I don't know, 8-10 strands of this polar flash, something like that. Sometimes I put a couple different flashes in here. Like I said, this is a work in progress type of a fly. Okay, now I'm going to take, this is really probably a unneeded step, but I'm going to take some pearl flat braid, and I'm just going to wrap a quick flat braid body. Now I say this is unneeded because when this fly is all finished up and it gets wet, this section really is not at all visible, so you could bypass this altogether. Of course, you could use other materials and really mess around with it, but this is just how I've been doing it. This fly is a little bit time consuming. It's not difficult to tie, but there is, you'll see when I get to the shank part, it does get a little bit finicky just because there's only so much room to work with. You'll see what I mean here. So I'm just going to whip finish this. I guess I could have used my white thread for this part, but like I said, this all gets covered up anyway, so who cares. So next up, I've got a Spawn 60-degree jig shank. This is 20 millimeter. I'm just going to invert my hook, and I'm going to put the shank right on there. The bend of the shank, the same as the hook, because I want this to ride hook point up. This is going to be a pretty heavy fly. It's going to get down to the bottom pretty quickly, so I really want this hook up just to minimize hooking the bottom. And I have a 4.6 millimeter pink slotted tungsten bead on there already. So once I get the shank on, I'm going to take the hook out of the vise and put the shank in there. And then I'm going to reattach my thread. And start securing that shank, closing that shank opening. Try to be careful not to cut my thread when I get to the edge of that doubled over part of the shank. I cut this thread fairly often on this pattern, especially a little bit later on when I'm wrapping material, trying to tie down the materials and all that, but just got to be careful right here where the doubled over portion ends. It's really easy to cut your thread, especially using this lighter thread that I like to use. One thing that I haven't totally figured out yet is how to fill in this portion. You can see where this is doubled over, it's thicker right here than it is here where it's just a single part of the shank. I don't think it makes a big difference in this fly. It's just my own peculiar OCD with it, I guess. So now the next step is I'm going to put on a pair of Dumbbell Eyes. This is a size small. Like, I think these are pseudo eyes. Maybe they're Real Eyes Plus. I don't remember. Now I'm going to put this on what would be the underside of the fly. So it's going to be here, because this is going to ride like this. So these eyes are going to be on the underside. Now this is just a guess. I haven't, like I said, I haven't had a chance to get these in the water and really mess around with them. But I think having them on the underside will probably help this ride a little bit better. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I am going to wrap some thread there just to kind of help get that bead a little bit more secure. Now this part can be a little bit wonky. I want that. I've tried this a bunch of different ways. It's hard to tie It's hard to tie Clouser style eyes on a jig shank. It's just physically a little bit difficult. I find that having the bead here helps actually. It helps give me a reference point and kind of a I've tried to tie the Clouser eyes back. I've tried to do a lot with like tying standard style Clousers. Like I said, this started trying to tie a 50-50 Clouser, which is a lefty cray pattern. It's basically a Clouser with hackles added to it coming off the back. And that was sort of what started all this messing around. But I haven't been able to get the look that I like for that just yet. So tweaking around with it, I have come up with this, and I don't know, I dig this. So basically, with a standard Clouser, you tie the eyes back a little ways, and then you tie stuff in between the hook eye and the dumbbell eyes. I'm not really doing that in this case. Like I said, I haven't figured out exactly how to do that in a manner that I like. So I'm just messing around here, and this seems to work. I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on here. Put some down in there where the bead is, just because. Now tying it this way, I'm obviously not going to be tying in anything in front of the eyeballs like a standard Clouser. You know, the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest advantage or the biggest job that eyeballs have like this on a Clouser is to provide the up and down. You put those eyes near the front of the hook, makes it front heavy. That weight makes that fly move up and down. So the eyes might not even really be necessary, because with this tungsten bead, it's gonna be up and down anyway. However, I kind of just dig the look that this comes out as with these eyes. Spawn Fly Fish on their blog on their website has a step-by-step for a pattern they call the bent bait fish. It's a bait fish style pattern tied with the tungsten bead, but there's no dumbbell eyes, and I'm quite confident that thing moves insanely well. In fact, I'm going to try to do a video for that here one of these days. I haven't totally mastered tying that fly, but it's alright. Now, to the same extent, I could get by without the bead, just use the eyes. I think it would probably at least make it ride right and everything else. I like the extra weight. This is all in my head because I can't fish this. I like the concept of the extra weight. I like that pink kind of hot spot at the front, and it's just a different look and a different approach. So that's what I've been going with. Like I said, this is it's all a work in progress. And since this is a casual tying series that we've got going on here, that's fine. So here we go. I've got the very back end in here, and I have the very front end. So next up, I'm going to tie in the belly, and that's going to be white bucktail. So get me a clump of this. Now, since this is going to ride as it's sitting right now in the vise, the belly is going to be on the same side as the dumbbell eyes. Now, this part can be a little bit finicky, mainly because there's not much room to work with. You can see I've got my vise right here. I've got to tie this down. Now I'm going to try to measure this for length. I don't know the right answer to this. I like my belly length maybe a third of the way down the grizzly hackles. That's just what I like. Like I said, I don't know that there's a right answer for this, and this part can be a little tough. I'm going to tie that in right behind those eyes, and then I'm going to wrap that back, trying to keep it right on top of that shank as best I can. And it can be a little bit of a pain because you can see I'm really run out of room. But it's not impossible. And once you do it a couple times, it's really not that bad. So I'm going to take some more Pearl Polar Flash. Got some wanky ends here. I'm just going to trim this a little bit. I don't want them all even, but I'm going to tie that. Try to measure that out for length. Again, this is where it gets a little goofy. Try to make that a little bit longer than the bucktail. Same process. Tie that in. I find that keeping just a little bit of thread out of the end of my bobbin makes this process a little bit easier. And one reason I've been using white tying thread for this is actually my first attempt at an all using just red the whole time. I've got white on my Raid Zap adjustable stem bobbin here, and man, this adjustable stem is really nice for doing this because I can have a little longer stem and I can really get it in there very easily. So nice application for that. Okay, so I've got a belly-ish. Now I'm going to invert this again, or back to the normal side, I guess. And I'm going to add in some pink. I'm going to use a little bit of pink bucktail. This is like a bubblegum pink. Now I'm not going to use a ton here because I'm going to add more materials on this. This would be the wing side, I guess, if you were tying a standard Clouser. But I really like this combination of pink and blue. I don't know why. So I've got a fairly sparse piece. I'm going to try to make that maybe just slightly longer than the white. It's hard to do that exactly because you can see how the white bucktail is following my vise head down, and so I'm just kind of trying to do the best I can here. This side is definitely easier to work with. Okay, got some pink in there, and I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to put in some pink Ripple Ice fiber on this one just for a little more pink. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Like I said, I've been kind of tweaking this as I go. You'll notice I'm tying my pink bucktail and the pink Ripple Ice here a little further back. I'm not tying it in right up here tight to the eyes. The reason is that I'm trying not to build up a huge bunch of bulk right there. I find that if I tie everything right there, by the time I get to the end, it's just thicker than I like, I guess. No big deal, but I'm going to leave that just like that. And now I've got some reflector flash. This is a silver. I messed around with this stuff on my Clouser video I did a couple weeks ago, as far as different variations you could make to a Clouser. And this stuff is pretty darn cool. So I'm just going to get a length of this. I'm going to tie it in at the back. And then I'm going to trim that because it's going to smack the camera, I think, as I go. I'm going to start wrapping this. And this can be a little bit messy and a little goofy, but I'm trying to stroke those fibers as I go to the back. And trust me, I understand this looks pretty unruly, but that's alright. When this gets wet, this stuff looks freaking awesome. Yeah, we'll just go right there, I guess. So I basically tied that up right up to the eyes. Not like super tight to the eyes, but pretty close. Trim off that, and then I'm going to just very carefully, trying not to hook myself as I've done a lot, stroke fibers back and tie those in there. Okay, now I've got some blue bucktail. This is like a kind of a light blue, not quite a kingfisher blue, but not that far off. Really like this color. I've been tying this in several color combinations, but I've really been digging on this one with the pink and the blue. So I'm going to get a chunk of this. This is going to kind of be my top wing, I guess. I'm going to tie that in right there where I stopped with the reflector flash. And of course I'm going to get flash fibers going every which way. Make sure I have that centered. Now at this point I am going to take some glue, let it soak in there to try to, mainly because I'm not tying this bucktail down on so many other materials and things that I just want to feel a little more confident about its durability if I really get that glued and soaked in there. I really want that to hold. Okay, now if I can find it, here we go. I have some smoke blue ripple ice fiber. My absolute favorite color. I just freaking love this stuff. Take a nice little pinch of this. I don't want it a ½ inch thick, but I do want it to be there. I want it to be noticeable. I love this color so much, I guess, that measure that for length with my bucktail. Pretty much as close to in length to the blue bucktail, maybe even slightly longer. Tie that in at the same spot. Now this, as I said earlier, I've been tying this with all white, and at this point I would get this all good and secured, whip finish it, switch over to red to add that red kind of gills hot spot. And then it occurred to me, well, why bother? Just because everything's kind of covered up anyway, why not just use red and save a step? So that's what I was referring to earlier. So now I'm just basically cleaning this up. You can see between the bead and the red tying thread, you can see the materials in it. I've been trying to come up with a way to kind of cover that, if you will. It makes absolutely no difference. It's just my own preference, because by God, these things better look good to us, or what's the point, right? So I'm just basically cleaning up, making sure that everything's covered in red. Do a few more figure-8 wraps there. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, it does help actually clean up that a little bit. And whip finish. That's going to be it. I have a wanky red thread wrap around the eyes here that is going to drive me nuts, so I got to take care of that. There it goes. Get a nice whip finish on there. And that's it. Now, this thing looks pretty crazy, right? I get it. But I'm going to take this out of the vise and I'm going to get this wet. I've got some water right here. Do this without... For some reason, using running water is a lot quicker than just using a bowl of water like I keep here at my vise. But there we go. You can see it gets better with the running water if it wasn't trying to mess around with this, but you can see the profile that it ends up with. It's very much a bait fishy profile. That pearl or that reflector flash. I've done these where I tie everything in and then I finish it with reflector flash. In fact, I've got one of those right here. Same style, only nothing is tied on top of the reflector flash, and it looks great too. But I like this way because it basically puts a dark colored wing on top of there, which I like for contrast and sort of a general bait fishy type of a thing. And it makes that reflector flash really kind of turn more into the belly. Again, this is all just thinking out loud because I have not had a chance to fish one of these. But looking at it, I would put money that I could catch fish with this. In fact, I'm actually pretty excited about this one. I really think that this has the potential to be a pretty productive fly. I just have a feeling it's going to move so well, partly because it's articulated, so that back end is going to move a little bit independently. But I just think with the jig shank and such amount of weight at the front of this, it's going to move up and down. It's just gonna flutter. That tail should really sort of move and wiggle on the drop, which I like. I just like everything about this pattern. I love this pink, white, and blue color combo. This I have a high amount of confidence in. So there you go. Like I said, I don't even know what you would call this. I'm not gonna probably give this a name because this is just a bunch of other people's ideas that I've sort of mixed together. But I really, really dig it. It's fun to tie. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you can do it in different color combos, different materials, and I just think that this one is going to be a winner. So if you have some of this stuff, you have these jig shanks and slotted tungsten beads, give this one a shot. Add a few to your box, mess around with the materials, colors, find something that works. Leave me a comment, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Other than that, hope everybody's having a good day out there, and thanks for watching.